William pitched his tent on the field of battle, upon the ridge, just where the abbey is now, or the ruins of the abbey is now. And there he pitched his tent. He ached, he was stiff. And when his butler and stewards helped him to take his mailcoat off, his chain mailcoat off, and his other, not a cut on his body, but he was black and blue from head to toe. And he was tired, they were exhausted. They could still hear the chant of the Battle of Mahabodh from little groups dotted all over the field. But slowly, the chant became less and less, and there was silence, apart from the screams, the howling sometimes of the wounded, the dead and dying on both sides. Next day, he gave orders to find the body of Harold Godwinson, because he feared that if he doesn't find the body, then he could have escaped. The story will go around that he's alive. It will give the English more encouragement to fight on. He had to find the dead body. He sent out people who said they knew Harold, and they couldn't find him. But then at last he sent for Harold's wife, Edith Swan Neck, the woman he married outside a religious ceremony in the handfast way, the old Viking and Saxon way. And she looked around the field, and then she came across a body very mutilated, half not there, but she saw a birthmark and said, that is Harold's body. And so they gathered up what they could of the pieces. They found a head that resembled him slightly, but they couldn't really tell, only by the hair, which was long and very golden. And then William had it taken back to his tent, where he washed the parts of the body and had it sewn together, stitched up to make one piece. And then he covered the body with the purple silk of royalty. Harold's mother, Gita, desperately wanted her son's body. She'd lost all her sons, they were all dead. But she wanted his body so she could give it a burial, a Christian burial. But William, no, he wasn't going to do that. So he had it buried, the remains of Harold Godwinson, the last Saxon king, on the cliffs of Dover, so the story goes, as a defender against further invasions. But then there's another story that soon after he gave in and let the family have the body back. By then, 2 or 3 months after, everyone knew the result of the battle throughout England and what had happened there. So when the various parts of the body were found, William had them taken back to his tent and laid upon a table, which is assembled ready for this ceremony which he was about to perform, where he washed the body personally and anointed it with oil, and then carefully covered it in purple silk, the colour of royalty. But then Harold's mother, who had lost all her sons, they were all dead, offered William great treasure for Harold's body. But he was a hard man, very hard man. He'd lost a lot of men, there was great carnage, and he was still blaming Harold for this. And he refused. And the story, it is a story and a rumour, that he buried Harold remains on the cliffs of Dover so as to defend England against all further invasion. But 2 or 3 months after, again, not sort of verified this story, but he relented and gave the body back to Harold's mother, where she had it interned in Waltham Abbey. an abbey that Harold had founded when he was Earl of Wessex. And he'd actually prayed there the night before October the 13th. So she returned his body there to the monks. And you could still see, if you go there and walk in, it's a small church now. You walk in on the right-hand side, just before you enter the church, there's a grave which says, "Here lies Harold Godwinson, last king of Anglo-Saxon England." Whether he's there, nobody knows. This was in 1064, 2 years before the battle. And he went on an expedition. Nobody knows quite why he did this. But he took men with him, armed, and went to Normandy. But he was shipwrecked. And of course, when they got onto land, they were captured by the local count, who was a vassal of Duke William, as we know, as the Conqueror. And this count held him prisoner, but then William got to know of it and sent men to release Harold and bring him back to his court, which he did. Now, there could be one reason why he went there. He had a younger brother, Wulfnoth, who was a hostage for some reason in Normandy. And maybe he went over there to negotiate his release. We don't know that. We don't really know the reason why he was there. Whether he was sent there by Edith the Confessor, or whether he did get shipwrecked but just went on a fishing expedition. Difficult to know. But while he was at William's court, William made an expedition into Brittany to quell a rebellion. And he took Harold with him. Harold was armed, like a Saxon earl would be, and they rode together. And they noticed, before they got to the town, which the name escapes me at the moment, it's rather silly, where the Count of Brittany was, there was some marshy land, and a couple of Norman knights actually made the mistake of going there and being swallowed up by the marshes. Harold immediately was off his horse and ran to their rescue. He rescued 2 of the knights, and he was cheered. He was a hero. But then he made a mistake, we don't know really, but William knighted him on the field. Now, usually in medieval times, if you knighted someone, that made them your vassal, your subject. Now, Harold had no need to do this. He was an earl in his own right. He was the Earl of Wessex and knew could be the future king. He rumoured to do that. It's also rumoured that he promised to marry one of William's daughters. Now, he was still being kept, very politely, really, as a prisoner, but, it was all done in a very friendly way. But then he wanted to go home. He wanted to get back. He wanted to be with his family. He wanted to go back to England. This is what he loved. He didn't want to be in Normandy. I asked William, please, look, I've got to go. The tides are okay. I can go back with my men. And William said, will you swear that when the King Edward, the Confessor, dies, which, we all knew he was very ill, you swear that the throne will be mine. Swear now. By all accounts, Harold swore that this is actually what he would do, and it would be William's throne. Now, I'm sure Harold had no intention of this going to happen, but then William took off this cover, which was on the table. Below it were holy relics. Now, they were very superstitious about holy relics in those days, and, breaking an oath and breaking a promise, and highly dangerous. Paranoia could set in. But at least William allowed him, the tides are okay, you can go back to England. And so Harold was back in England. Well, Edward the Confessor, by all accounts, was furious about all this. you know, how dare you go without my permission? What were you doing there? This is, again, not a great deal of proof about it. But then, 2 years later, of course, Edward died, announced that he wanted Harold to be king. He was the greatest war leader in Anglo-Saxon England. He said nothing about Duke William being king. And in those days, it wasn't just because of the royal line that you could be king. You were voted in by the Witan, which is the first sort of parliament, the first council, all the high-standing men. And they, like, overwhelmingly voted for Harold. There was only one man. He was the most popular man in England. He was loved by everybody. He had charisma. He was like a superstar. And we know what happened.